Hey everyone, it's Carissa Wiley here for EllenHudson.com. Thanks for joining me today. Today I am sharing 4 ways to use the brand new XOXO die from the Essentials by Ellen line. I think this is so much fun to use near Valentine's Day or year round. And these big dies are so versatile. So I wanted to give you a few ways to jumpstart your creativity when you're using this die. So here's a look at the die. I love that all the letters are fused together so you can die cut it at once. You don't have to line anything up. I'm also going to be using the Valentine Vibes stamp set with the sentiment strips die, and I'm going to start with that because I want to get all of these sentiment strips ready for my project so that when I'm ready to assemble, we're ready to go. So I'm starting out with a piece of pink cardstock in my black Misty 2.0. I love the black color. I think it's so much fun. And I have prepped the surface of the cardstock with a powder tool. I've inked up my stamp using some Versamark ink and stamped it onto this pink cardstock. Then I'm going to remove it from my Misty, add some super fine detail white embossing powder, and heat set that. Now, this is a great stamp, and there are so many from the Essentials by Ellen line where you can use the sentiment strip dies, including some hot foil plates. And I think it's a great way to have little bits and pieces on hand for card making projects so that when you sit down, you can be really productive. You can see I lined up the coordinating sentiment strips die. I taped it in place with some removable tape, ran that through my die cut machine, and now I have all of these love themed sentiments ready to go. So now let's get started with our first card, and I'm going to be using this XOXO die in a trifold card, and I'm going to create a partial die cut panel. So I have 2 pieces of cardstock here. They measure 5.5 by 8.5, and I'm going to score them at 4.25 to create 2 horizontal A2 size card bases. So just 2 card bases here. You're going to make them like normal. And eventually we will connect these 2 card bases to create a trifold design. So I'm kind of showing you where we're going here. So this grapefruit card will be on the bottom with the score line on the bottom. And the blush piece will be on the top, and that will create our trifold design. Now I'm going to take the XOXO die and I'm going to line it up on this card base. Now keep in mind, my score line is on the bottom of this card base. I used my T-square ruler to go ahead and make sure that my XOXO die was straight across this card panel. And then I'm going to open it up and I'm going to do some partial die cutting. I want to cut everything up here on the right. And I don't want to cut below this line of dots here. So what I'm going to do is line this up on my cutting plates with that line of dots kind of sticking out from the cutting plate. So you can see I'm using that as a reference line. And when you're using the Gemini Junior, I find it helpful to kind of just tape that cardstock in place onto the cutting plates so that it doesn't shift around when you're picking up your cutting plates. Now, if you're having a hard time seeing that, you can use your T-square ruler and kind of make some pencil marks and line up those pencil marks with the edge of your cutting plate. So keep in mind, anything sticking out of the cutting plate, so above that line of dots or above that pencil line, will not cut. But everything between the cutting plates will cut. So you can see, because the clear cutting plate's a little bit larger than that double-sided die cutting plate, kind of the green colored one, it looked like everything was under all of the cutting plates. But that line of dots and everything underneath it at this point were sticking out of the cutting plates. And that leaves me with a partial die cut design. So now I just need to finish this off with my trimmer, and I am using this rail trimmer here from Fiskars. And I like this because I can see that the edge of the rail is exactly where it's going to cut. So I've cut from the edge to the edge of that X, and then I lifted my blade and went to the other side of the card base. And now I'm cutting from the edge of that card base to the edge of the O. Then I'm going to lift my blade again and just kind of cut between these die cut letters. I don't want to cut all the way across because that will just take all the XO and the XO off. But once I've cut between these letters, you can see I have this partial die cut design, and it is perfect for a tri-fold card. Now, I did trim a little bit off the back of that piece because I don't need all of it. I will cover up the back of this card, but you can see when I slip this kind of behind this blush card base, I have a tri-fold card design. Now, in order to clean up the back of this, I'm going to go ahead and cut a second piece of blush cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, and that's just going to cover up where this grapefruit piece overlaps on the back of my card base. So I want to make sure that I adhere this really securely to the blush card base. So I'm using some 1/4 inch score tape here, and you can see I'm taking the back of the blush card base and I'm nestling it into the fold line of this partial die cut piece that we've created. I'm being really careful to get this lined up correctly, and then I'm just going to press that down. And when I close the blush card base, I then have this tri-fold piece that kind of overlaps the front. Now I'll just attach that other piece onto the back, and then it's time to kind of doll this up a little bit. So I have chosen to use this adorable fox and the heart balloon from the Heart Eyes stamp set. I'm stamping it using some Gina K Obsidian Amalgam ink onto some Nina Solar White heavyweight cardstock, and then I'm coloring it with some Copic markers. I use the coordinating dies to die cut those adorable images, and then I have something to kind of decorate this trifold card. Now, this grapefruit cardstock is a little on the lighter side, lighter weight side. So what I decided to do was die cut the XOXO again out of grapefruit cardstock and adhere a second layer to the back of the pieces that are kind of sticking up, just to give them a little bit of heft so that they don't want to bend or fold too easily. So I went ahead and adhered all 4 of those letters on the back side of that partial die cut piece. That way you don't lose the partial die cut effect. And then I die cut one of the new Essential Hearts from some Concord and Ninth matte gold cardstock, and I placed that onto the blush card base. I positioned my little fox with his adorable heart balloon right over that partial die cut XOXO. And I'm going to finish this off with one of the sentiment strips that I created with the Valentine Vibes stamp set right across this XOXO partial die cut piece. Such a fun way to use this die. And I hope that this inspires you to kind of think outside of the box when you have these large, chunky sentiment dies like that. Now, I did end up adding a little strip of gold cardstock on the front of that XOXO piece just to add a little more shine, and that completes my first card. Now, for my second card, I thought this die is a horizontal die, but let's go ahead and flip it and use it in a vertical fashion. So kind of look at your dies and see if you can use them in a little bit different way than what they were designed. And I'm creating a background for my card. So I have the Painted Stripes stamp set from the Essentials by Ellen Line. I started out by inking it up in grapefruit ink and stamping it onto some Nina Solar White cardstock. And then I went ahead and moved my cardstock panel over to the left just a little bit. I inked up in Do-Si-Do ink from Catherine Pooler. I stamped that down, and then I moved my panel over to the left again, inked up with Ballet Slipper from Concord and Ninth, and then stamp that down. Now, I was using a sticky mat to hold that in the center of my Misty as I stamped. And to take that piece off of the Misty sticky mat, I just like to roll the sticky mat so that I don't kind of curl up my cardstock. Now I'm going to take this XOXO die and I'm going to die cut it from some heavyweight Nina Solar White cardstock. And I die cut that 3 times because I'm going to stack up these die cuts 4 dimension. Now I'm also using one of the new Essential Heart dies from the Essentials by Ellen Line. I love these. I love the little frames. And I die cut that 6 times from some Nina Solar White heavyweight cardstock, because I'm using 3 hearts on each of these and I am replacing the O with a heart. So I'm kind of just lining all of this up on my card panel, seeing where I want everything. And then I'm going to attach the first heart frame to the first X. So this is just one layer. I'm just getting everything positioned so I can kind of move a little quicker here. Now I am going to stack up all of these X's on top of that piece. So I have one layer of the heart, and I'm going to stack up 3 layers of the X's on top of that. Now, once I get all of the X's stacked up, I'm going to go ahead and add some liquid glue on top of the heart. I don't want it to get too bulky where the heart frame overlaps the X though. So I'm going to attach it down and I'm going to snip off along the edge of that X die cut and snip off that little piece that overlaps the X so that I don't have bulk building up there, because I do want to build up dimension on this heart, but I don't want it to be bulky in that one place. So I'm just snipping off this little piece, and then I'm going to stack another heart on top of it and do the same thing, snip off that overlapping piece. Now I'm trimming down one of the sentiments here. This one says sealed with a kiss, or SWOC, I guess. And when I went back and I was looking at my stacked up pieces, I felt like the heart needed another layer on top. So this is a 4th layer and it will overlap the X. And that just kind of gives it a little more finished look so that you don't have those cut lines on the die cut that are visible when this is on your card project. Now, once I had both of those done, I went ahead and glued them onto my card front. I added my little sealed with a kiss, or SWOC sentiment here with some foam adhesive. And then I'm going to take this entire card panel and place it onto a top folding A2 size card base. And I did use some foam adhesive behind that to give it a little dimension. Now for some embellishments, I decided to use some pretty pink Posh clay hearts, and I'm just kind of sprinkling them all over the front of this card, and that finishes up card number 2. So I'm taking a horizontal die, using it in a vertical fashion, and kind of replacing those O's with some hearts instead. Now, card number 3 seems like the most obvious way to use this die, at least it does to me. And that is to use it for a shaker card. These big, bold sentiments are perfect for a shaker card. And I want this gold heart to kind of move through the center of my shaker window. So I've die cut it from some matte gold cardstock from Concord and Ninth. And I'm using just the frame on my card front. I'm adhering it down with some liquid glue. And then I'm going to take my XOXO die and I'm going to line it up on this card panel. And I'm going to hold it in place with some removable tape. Once again, using my T-square ruler to make sure I have it straight on my card panel. And then I'm going to run that through my die cut machine. And that's going to create my shaker window. Now, because I want this heart frame to be continuous, even on the inner parts of my letters, I added my gold heart to the panel first and then die cut it. Now I've gone ahead and cut down a piece of Essentials by Ellen clear plastic, and I'm going to adhere that onto the back of this window with some liquid glue. And you can see up in the upper left of the screen, I have saved these inner parts of the O, and I am going to go ahead and add them onto this window using some liquid glue. And this is going to keep that heart as a continuous shape even through the shaker window, which I think is so much fun. Now I'm being very careful when I place these down because I don't want them to kind of move or slip around too much to where I get some glue squishing out the edges. So I am using my tweezers to help me place them. And now I am using just some scrap computer printer paper here to create a striped design that I can place behind my shaker window. I have several different colors of kind of pink and grapefruit colored cardstocks. They're cut to different widths, kind of the widest being that blush piece at the top and then kind of getting more narrow as we go down. And I have used some tape runner adhesive, placed it on this scrap piece of printer paper, and I'm just adhering these strips of cardstock onto that piece there. This is going to make it one piece that I can use and move all at one time instead of trying to place these kind of onto the card front. It just, to me, it seems a little easier. I trimmed off the excess and then I added some tape runner adhesive to the back of this piece, and I'm adhering it to a horizontal A2 size card base. So this is going to be kind of the background of the shaker window. Now for the embellishments on this shaker card, I went ahead and used, once again, those clay hearts from Pretty Pink Posh, as well as some sparkling clear confetti from Pretty Pink Posh. And I sprinkled that onto that striped piece. And I went ahead and added some foam adhesive to the back of my card front. And I'm removing the backer on that and placing that right over that striped piece, trapping in all of those shaker guts. And I finished this card off with another little sentiment strip from the Valentine Vibes stamp set, as well as some more of those clay hearts on the front of the card. So this is a fun way to use a sentiment die like this as a shaker window, or you could just do a plain window as well. I think that's a fun way to use these kind of bigger, bolder sentiments. Now for the final project, I'm going to create a tag. And so I'm using the Modern Tags die set from the Essentials by Ellen line. I've die cut it from some blush cardstock. And then of course I have die cut the XOXO die again. I have 4 layers here, but you can see some of the layers are actually left over from my shaker window piece that I created earlier and from the O's that I substituted for the hearts earlier. So I'm kind of reusing some of the pieces that I already have. I've stacked those up so that there's plenty of dimension. And then I've used the Essential Hearts and I've die cut that out of some really pretty salmon-y pink colored cardstock. I've attached that onto the bottom of my tag, kind of hanging over that left side. And then I'm going to attach these stacked up die cuts that have a little bit of dimension, also kind of hanging off the bottom of the tag or the edge of the tag. And then I cut down 2 of these sentiment strips and just placed those kind of one below the other onto that O. And then I just added a little bit of twine and some gold thread at the top. I stacked up a second die cut tag behind it. And you can either use this as a tag or you can place it onto a card. I love that tags like this are so versatile and you can use them in so many ways. So there you have it, 4 ways to use the brand new Essentials by Ellen XOXO die in all of your Valentine card making, or even for anniversaries, or just to send somebody some hugs and kisses across the miles. This is not just limited to Valentine's Day because love is year-round. Now, as always, I will have links to the featured products used in these projects in the description at YouTube. So if you're looking for something in particular, be sure you check there. Or you can head on over to the coordinating blog post. I'll have that linked below as well. Over there, you're going to find more still shots, more information, and a complete list of supplies. As always, thank you so much for stopping by and spending time with me today. I am so glad you're here. I hope you enjoyed these projects. If you did, be sure to give this video a thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notifications here on YouTube so you don't miss any of the paper crafting and card making video tutorials shared here. Leave me a comment below and let me know which of these 4 projects is your favorite. I cannot wait to hear which one you guys love because it's always such a toss-up for me. And I can't wait to hear which of these projects inspires you the most. Thanks so much for stopping by today. Thanks again for watching. And until next time, I hope you have a fabulous day.